The Sorcerer's Exam is here. Get ready to craft the perfect spellbook and capture rampaging demons to become the next Master Alchemist. Over the course of the game, players take turns casting spells and sorcery, capturing demons, and upgrading their spellbook and tablet. The game ends when enough players have claimed objectives. Players earn points for purchased spells, unique sets of captured demons, and objectives claimed. The player with the most points passes their exam and is dubbed the next Master Alchemist. The following setup is for 4 players. Details on the 2 and 3 player setup can be found in the rulebook. Place the scripture board in the center of the play area. Sort the spells by the points shown in the bottom right corner of the spell cards. Place the spell decks in the indicated areas on the scripture board. Reveal the top 3 cards from the 1-point spell deck. Randomly select 7A scripture tiles and 7B scripture tiles. Place the 7A scripture tiles to the left of the 3-point spell deck and the 7B scripture tiles to the left of the 5-point spell deck. Place the remaining B scripture tiles in a stack above the scripture board. Reveal the topmost tile of the A scripture stack. Select the archdemons to be in the 4-player game, that is, 2 level 2 archdemons, 2 level 3 archdemons, and 2 level 4 archdemons. Separate the demon cards into as many decks as there are archdemons in the game, then shuffle an archdemon into each deck. Stack the deck face down. The decks with the highest level archdemons should be on the bottom, and the decks with the lowest level archdemons on top. Place the deck on the scripture board. Reveal the top 3 cards of the demon deck. If an archdemon is revealed in this process, draw 1 more demon card and return the archdemon to the top of the deck. Select 4 objectives, 1 for each glyph type. For the first game, I recommend using the A objective cards detailed on page 9 in the rulebook. Place the objective cards on their respective locations on the scripture board according to glyph type. Place the 4 standard glyph types and the 2 special glyph types next to the scripture board where all players can reach. Give each player a player board, 2 tracker cubes, 1 glyph bag, 1 player aid and sorcery card, and the 5 starting spell cards in corresponding colors. Give each player 4 of each standard glyph type. Players should take 2 of each glyph type at a time and form a circular formation on the tablet of their player board. The order of the glyphs in the circle can be randomized, but ensure that 2 glyphs of each color are always touching. Players then place 1 of each glyph type on the desk of their player board. Then place the remaining 4 glyphs in the glyph bag, shuffle the bag, and take 1 glyph from the bag and place it in the center of the tablet. Each player should then shuffle the 5 starting spell cards and place the stack on the spellbook area of their player board. Then draw 3 spells to the player's hand, keeping them hidden from other players. The player who most recently wore gold receives the starting player token, and places their tracker cubes on 0 gold and 0 mana. Turn order will continue in clockwise order from this player. The second player starts with 1 gold and 0 mana, the third player 2 gold and 0 mana, and the fourth player 2 gold and 1 mana. Players must perform the main phases of their turn in sequential order. However, players can cast sorcery at any point during their turn. Players must start their turn by placing 1 and only 1 glyph on their tablet. To do so, players select 1 glyph on their desk and slide it onto any row or column of their tablet. The glyph pushed off their tablet is placed in their glyph discard. Players can now cast up to 3 spell cards from their hand. To cast a spell, players try to match 1 pattern on their spell cards with a pattern of glyphs on their tablet. As long as the pattern is present on the tablet in some form, meaning the pattern can be rotated or mirrored, the player can cast the spell. If the pattern is not present, the player cannot cast the spell that turn. Yellow gold spells allow players to gain gold to be spent on new spells or new rows and columns on their tablet. Higher level gold spells allow players to trash spell cards, permanently removing them from the game to refine their spellbook. Red mana spells allow players to gain mana to spend on sorcery. Sorcery gives players additional actions each turn for added flexibility. Players can cast as much sorcery as they need on a given turn, provided they have the mana to do so. Green glyph spells allow players to both gain glyphs and add glyphs to the scripture board in an attempt to capture a demon. Higher levels of glyph spells allow players to gain wild glyphs that can act as any glyph color, or dud glyphs, which they can add to opponents' tablets to block them from casting spells. Blue scripture spells allow players to add the revealed scripture tile to the scripture board. Players gain bonuses indicated on the card if they match the tile with light colors on the scripture board. This is also the most effective way to capture demons. This action also serves to progress the game, as placing scripture tiles unlocks the ability to purchase from more powerful spell decks. Wild and Dud spells are unique in that the player does not need to match any patterns to gain the benefit listed on the card. However, players still must add one glyph to their tablet to cast these spells. As long as the player added a scripture tile or a glyph to the scripture board during their turn by casting a spell card or spending mana for sorcery, the player can capture one and only one demon, earning a one-time bonus and points at the end of the game. Capturing demons is similar to casting spells. Players must match the pattern on the scripture board with the pattern on the demon card to capture the demon. Again, these patterns can be rotated or mirrored. However, players must always add a scripture tile or glyph to the specific pattern that they use to capture the demon. Players cannot simply capture a demon for a pattern that existed on the scripture board before their turn without adding something to that pattern. Players can use gold to purchase new spells or add a new row or column to their tablet. Spells are purchased by paying the indicated gold amount next to the spell deck and listed on the top right corner of the spell card. Any purchased spells are added to the player's spell discard area. New rows and columns must be purchased in order at the amount indicated on the bottom left corner of the player board. To purchase, players pay the indicated gold amount, then draw the indicated amount of glyphs from their glyph bag. Players then place the glyphs they draw in the same row or column around the glyphs already on their tablet. Players can choose the order in which the glyphs are arranged. Before purchasing a new row or column, players must ensure that they will have one glyph remaining after the purchase on their desk, discard, or glyph bag so they can cast spells on future turns. If they do not have glyphs remaining, they cannot make this purchase. Upon ending their turn, players discard their cast spells and any glyphs pushed off their tablet. Players then can decide to retain or discard any uncast spells and redraw up to 3 spells. Then players refill their glyphs up to 4. Players cannot discard any unused glyphs. Next, players should refill any spells purchased, reveal the next scripture tile if a scripture tile was placed, and any demons captured. If a player reveals an archdemon, a slightly different process occurs. The player must place the archdemon on the leftmost slot of the demon display, switching places with any demon already there. No more demon cards can be drawn until the archdemon is captured. Every time the turn order returns to the starting player, the archdemon will move one slot to the right in the demon display, consuming any demon in its path and removing it from the game. If the archdemon reaches the 4th slot, it escapes, and all players receive the penalty listed on the card. If a total of 3 archdemons escape during the game, all players immediately lose. Since archdemons have more complex patterns than regular demons, the active player can ask for aid from other players during the capturing demon phase of their turn. The other players can cast sorcery using mana to add glyphs or scripture tiles to the scripture board and attempt to capture the demon. If successful, all aiding players receive the bonus indicated on the card. However, only the active player will receive the archdemon card for points at the end of the game. Once the archdemon is captured, players must remove all scripture tiles and glyphs from the scripture board that were used to capture the archdemon. This frees up the scripture board for future turns. All empty slots in the demon display are also refilled. Later in the game, players see if they have satisfied the conditions on any of the objective cards. If they have, they can claim the objective card at this time. Players can only claim one objective card per turn. If they satisfied 2 objectives on the same turn, they can claim the second objective card at the end of their next turn. Players cannot have 2 of the same objective card. Once enough objective cards are taken, that is, 5 objectives in a 4-player game, the game ends after completing the round. Players count the points in the bottom right corner of their spell cards and points on any objective cards claimed. Players then separate their demons into sets of unique demons and earn the points indicated at the bottom of the card. The player with the most points has successfully passed the exam, winning the game and joining the ranks to become the next Master Alchemist.